Coming up on InfoSecSync, the latest in the outage that turned the lights out at Facebook and company.
Also ahead, how the government is putting pressure on companies to report cyber threats.
Plus, combating insider attacks.
And Uber adding services to make life easier on the weary traveler. We've got all those stories and more, so get ready to get in sync with InfoSecSync.
You're watching the InfoSecSync Weekly News with Nick Thomas and news anchor Leyla Gulen, sponsored by Axellio. Threat detection and response done right. Axellio.
Welcome to the InfoSecSync Weekly News for week ending October 8th, 2021. I'm Leyla Gulen with your host, Nick Thomas. Nick, good to see you.
Good to see you, Leyla. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, we've had a busy, eventful week. In fact, a nearly 6-hour outage that left billions of Facebook users stranded without access to their feeds or messages has raised many questions over the last few days. Facebook says that outage was caused by an internal router configuration change. However, security experts have pointed to a domain name system, or DNS, problem as a possible culprit. Other theorists argue that the outage is connected to the whistleblower allegations that leaked private internal research on the negative impact of the social media platform on younger users. Well, this week's outage prevented users from accessing Facebook's Instagram and WhatsApp platforms. This marked the longest stretch of downtime for Facebook since 2008, when a bug knocked the site offline for about a day, affecting about 80 million users. Well, the platform currently has around 3 billion users, billion with B. Nick, what are your thoughts on this?
So when I first heard this, Leyla, I thought it was pretty weird because Facebook has been around for a while and they've never had an outage this long. So, first of all, I thought it was hackers, ransomware, and then it turned out to be a DNS issue. That's what they're saying. I don't know if that's the final word. But I'm very weary of that.
Sure. And for people who aren't familiar with what DNS is, how would you explain it?
So DNS is a service that all the computers use that turns... for instance, Facebook or Yahoo has a numerical address like 127.0.0.1. That's actually a loopback address on your home computer. But they have an address sort of like that, but it's so hard to remember those addresses that there's a service that knows what the addresses are and simply takes you. So when you type in facebook.com, it knows Facebook is 123. Whatever it is and takes you there. So that's why that's so easy. And we've got more to come after the break. Some harsh words for gamers after a data breach. We'll be right back.
Are you concerned the next news headline on a security breach includes your company name? In a recent IBM cyber report, 51% of all interviewed organizations reported a significant business disruption during the past 2 years due to a cybersecurity incident, while organizations using 50-plus security tools rank themselves lower in their ability to detect and respond to an attack, with the average security operation team using 70 tools. If more tools and data are not the answer, what can you do? Axellio works with you to optimize a threat detection and response solution to fit your environment to prevent tool and data overload. We leverage and optimize your existing infrastructure enhanced with the Axellio platform as necessary, utilizing open source solutions where applicable. And we work closely with you to deploy, configure, document, and educate your team. Axellio, let's create the right security solution for your environment.
Welcome back. A quote, disgusting toxic cesspool. That's what an anonymous hacker called gamers after taking responsibility for the data breach affecting the popular video game streaming site Twitch. The breach included details on payments to content creators and an unreleased product from Amazon Game Studios. The hackers said they were releasing the information to, quote, foster more disruption and competition in the online video streaming world. The hacker took more than 125 gigabytes of data in the breach. The data also reportedly includes Twitch's source code and mention of Amazon Game Studios' plans to launch an online store for computer games, a potential rival to industry leader Steam.
From Russia with love, Microsoft announced that Russia accounted for most state-sponsored hacking over the past year. The hacks mostly targeted government agencies and think tanks in the United States, followed by Ukraine, Britain, and European NATO members. Meanwhile, China accounted for fewer than 1 in 10 of the state-backed hacking attempts Microsoft detected, but was successful 44% of the time in breaking into targeted networks. The report also cited ransomware attacks as a serious and growing plague. The criminally and financially motivated attacks targeted the United States more than any other country. By contrast, state-backed hacking is chiefly about intelligence gathering, whether for national security or commercial or strategic advantage. Only 4% of all state-backed hacking that Microsoft detected targeted critical infrastructure.
Why is the SolarWinds hack so significant in all of this?
So, Leyla, basically the SolarWinds hack was from basically a trusted source. So when you do updates to your Windows system or your Macintosh system, you're trusting that that update is going to do what it needs to do, but somehow the hackers were able to put something into that update that infected everything and were able to take control.
I see. All right. Well, meanwhile, Honeywell products could be at risk of an exploitation that could disrupt industrial processes. Cybersecurity researchers discovered that Honeywell's Experian Process Knowledge System, or PKS, is affected by 3 types of vulnerabilities, 2 of them having been assigned a severity rating of critical and can now allow an attacker to remotely execute arbitrary code on the system or cause a denial of service, or DOS, type of condition. Well, the third flaw is classified as high severity and affects a path traversal issue that can allow an attacker to access files and folders. The Honeywell Experian PKS product is used by organizations worldwide to control large industrial processes. The DCS leverages controllers that can be programmed using engineering workstation software. Nick?
Medical device maker Medtronic is expanding a recall to its remote controllers used with some of its insulin pumps. The company says the recall is related to a series of vulnerabilities discovered by researchers in 2018, which led to the recall of its Minimum 508 and Paradigm series insulin pumps due to vulnerabilities that could allow an attacker to remotely hack the devices. An attacker in close proximity of the target can intercept the radio frequency, thereby delivering an additional dose of insulin or prevent the delivery of insulin. More than 31,000 devices have been taken off the market. Neither the FDA nor Medtronic are aware of any reports of patient harm related to the vulnerabilities.
All right, thanks for that, Nick. Well, time for a break. When we return, more on the number 1 security threat facing this country. We'll be right back.
Many organizations are protecting their environment through perimeter defense using a combination of firewalls, IDSs, IPSs, and endpoint protection. Even though cost-effective, recent events have shown that perimeter defense, even though necessary, is not sufficient when it comes to threat detection and response. And once a threat actor penetrates these defenses, what tools do you have to detect their every move or to stop their preparations for ransomware attacks or data exfiltration? At Excelio, we believe that comprehensive network visibility across your network inside and out is essential to identify and respond to today's threat actors. Packet Express provides the network visibility and contextual data to detect, prioritize, and mitigate threats, no matter where they hide. Excelio, threat detection and response solutions with Packet Express, the network visibility hub.
And welcome back. Ransomware stands as one of the most pervasive threats to national security. U.S. cybersecurity officials sounded the alarm this week, saying ransomware can inflict measurable damage on major world powers. The government's Deputy National Security Advisor outlined the threat landscape, highlighting the ability of malicious actors to penetrate federal and corporate networks. It's expected that network defenders will soon be forced to combat a ransomware attack every day. Later this month, the U.S. will host 30 countries for a counter-ransomware initiative, which will tackle different elements, including the use of cryptocurrency, resilience, disruption, and diplomacy.
Well, there is new legislation up for debate in the U.S. Capitol that would require the reporting of ransom payments within 48 hours of the transaction. The bill would require the Department of Homeland Security to create a voluntary website to log ransom payments and task the DHS with a comprehensive study of the correlation between ransomware and cryptocurrency. The bill was authored by Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts and Democratic Congresswoman Deborah Ross of North Carolina. They say if it passes, the Ransomware Disclosure Act would make available critical data that would bolster their understanding of how cybercriminal enterprises operate and develop a fuller picture of the ransomware threat. Nick, what are your thoughts on this 48-hour thing, and can you see any downside to passing a bill like this?
I personally like the 48-hour thing that they're doing, and it gives the company enough time to say, hey, we've been hacked, we need help, we need assistance from the government to help us either get through this or report it or whatever. Problems with passing a bill like this, some companies won't like it because, it's going to ruin their reputation. But if it's a critical infrastructure that everyone depends on, I think it's much needed.
Yeah. Curious, though, if this could make that particular company an even bigger target for so publicly reporting it.
It actually could. So we'll just have to see if something like that happens.
Okay.
Federal contractors who fail to report a cyber attack or data breach are at risk of being sued by the Department of Justice. The DOJ announced their Civil Cyber Fraud Initiative, aimed at leveraging the existing False Claims Act to pursue contractors and grant recipients involved in what the DOJ calls cybersecurity fraud. The initiative holds the federal government accountable when they put U.S. cyber infrastructure at risk by knowingly providing flawed cybersecurity products or services. The initiative will help it build broad resiliency against cybersecurity intrusions across the public sector and will help government efforts to identify, create, and publicize patches for vulnerabilities in commonly used products and services.
Nick, now that cybersecurity requirements are in place for pipeline companies, the Transportation Safety Administration will now also issue requirements for rail systems and airport operators. The two pipeline directives followed a high-profile ransomware attack on Colonial Pipeline that shut off oil flow to the East Coast in May, sparking gas shortages and panic. Well, the new directives would require covered entities to identify a cybersecurity point person, report cyber incidents to DHS's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, and create a contingency and recovery plan to follow if they become victims of malicious cyber activity. The TSA will issue a new directive to cover high-risk railroads and rail transit entities that include Amtrak and subway systems in D.C. and New York.
Well, it's called the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency's Insider Threat Risk Mitigation Self-Assessment Tool. It's a mouthful, but it's a new tool that helps public and private sector organizations assess their level of vulnerability to insider threats. These threats could stem from current or former employees, contractors, or others with inside knowledge. A recent report shows 1,200 IT and security practitioners found that 53% of the responding companies find it impossible or very difficult to prevent an insider attack when data is being aggregated. CISA says the tool will help users further understand the nature of insider threats and take steps to create their own prevention and mitigation programs. Leyla?
All right, when we come back, Uber's new features helping to add convenience to your next trip. We'll explain after the break.
Are you concerned the next news headline on a security breach includes your company name? In a recent IBM cyber report, 51% of all interviewed organizations reported a significant business disruption during the past 2 years due to a cybersecurity incident, while organizations using 50-plus security tools rank themselves lower in their ability to detect and respond to an attack, with the average security operation team using 70 tools. If more tools and data are not the answer, what can you do? Excelio works with you to optimize a threat detection and response solution to fit your environment to prevent tool and data overload. We leverage and optimize your existing infrastructure, enhanced with the Excelio platform as necessary, utilizing open source solutions where applicable. And we work closely with you to deploy, configure, document, and educate your team. Excelio, let's create the right security solution for your environment.
A Russian cybersecurity CEO is behind bars and charged with treason. 35-year-old Ilya Sakov is the founder of Group IB, one of Russia's largest cybersecurity companies. He's accused of passing on information to foreign intelligence services. Headquartered in Singapore, the company works to prevent high-tech crimes and cyber attacks. Group IB is a member of the World Economic Forum, partners with international law enforcement agencies such as Interpol and Europol, and its clients include BP, DHL, Microsoft, Toyota, UFC, and other Russian companies. Sakov faces up to 20 years in prison.
Finally, it's like having your own private chauffeur arrive exactly when you need them. The rideshare service announced that customers can now book a ride up to a month in advance. And if you choose the more expensive Uber Black or Uber Black SUV, travelers can add flight information, which will automatically adjust according to your flight arrival time. The company added the features in an effort to help riders avoid long wait times during a driver shortage. And there's also a strategy to stand apart from their competitor, Lyft. Well, that's going to do it for us. We want to thank you for watching. On behalf of Nick and myself, you're now in sync with InfoSecSync. We'll see you here next week.
Many organizations are protecting their environment through perimeter defense using a combination of firewalls, IDSs, IPSs, and endpoint protection. Even though cost-effective, recent events have shown that perimeter defense, even though necessary, is not sufficient when it comes to threat detection and response. And once a threat actor penetrates these defenses, what tools do you have to detect their every move or to stop their preparations for ransomware attacks or data exfiltration? At Excelio, we believe that comprehensive network visibility across your network, inside and out, is essential to identify and respond to today's threat actors. Packet Express provides the network visibility and contextual data to detect, prioritize, and mitigate threats, no matter where they hide. Excelio, threat detection and response solutions with Packet Express, the network visibility hub.